At least 1 in 20 of your patients has a BV problem. So every couple of days you'll see at least one BV patient. So you cannot be an optometrist without knowing some orthoptics. I'm presenting today on interactive binocular vision cases. They're real cases, so every one of them is a patient that I've seen in a pretty typical community optometric practice. Patients that have walked in complaining of a certain problem, and there's been a BV anomaly that's been investigated, worked up in a community optometric practice. I think it's always been the case that there are many optometrists who are anxious about binocular vision anomalies. When they see a patient with a prism or with a long-standing binocular vision problem, maybe their stress levels rise a bit and they start thinking, oh, this is going to be a difficult patient. And what I'm trying to always get across in these talks is often actually they're not. Often there's a very logical, sequential, deductive approach to investigating, and nearly all of these cases can be managed. The most important take-home message always is, what do you need to refer, when do you need to refer it, and how urgently do you need to refer it. First case is a 50-year-old lady who I'm very grateful she let me share images of her with you. She had a history of a turning eye since she was a teenager. One of the cases is a lady who had been wearing gas-permeable lenses for many years. She's in her 50s. And she loved gas-permeable lenses. She'd also had an concomitant deviation since a teenager that had not changed for the intervening years, but was now starting to decompensate. And so there was a challenge in this case to work out why it was decompensating, to work out whether it could be pathology, in which case clearly referral was necessary, or whether it could be an optical intervention that she'd been given that was causing the decompensation. Cover tests showed left hypophoria, more at near than distance. What does this mean? This grade 5 goes to left hypertropia. So this is a system of grading cover test recovery that we developed at the Institute of Optometry, which is in the books, and it's a simple grading system that goes from 1 to 5. So grade 1 is great. With grade 1, as soon as you take the cover away, that phoria movement recovers instantly, smoothly and rapidly. Grade 5 is the worst. With a grade 5 recovery, which is what she had, as soon as you take the cover away from that first cover, the eye stays deviated. So the phoria breaks down very rapidly to atropia. So I take them through the case saying, this is what she complained of. What test would you do next? Would you do motility, pupils, fields, near point of convergence, or Van Herrick? Okay, now I've got you in a BV frame of mind, haven't I? And I put up Van Herrick, and some of you are thinking, why has he put Van Herrick up? It's a BV talk. Well, we shouldn't think of BV in isolation. She's +6, she's 50. I think we should do a Van Herrick, frankly. And we probably would in our routine. I would also want to do fields. Why do fields? Occasionally you get a patient with a long-standing BV problem that breaks down because either they have something going on in the motor control areas in the brain, so it could be cardiovascular, could be something more serious like a tumour, or because they have a space-occupying lesion constricting the visual field. Because if the visual field is constricted, their sensory fusion will be impaired. So it's not likely, frankly, it's probably the least likely of all of these things that could be going on. But if you see a patient with a BV problem, if they're old enough, and she certainly is, then definitely I'd do fields, pupils, things like that, just to check for any neurological things. And then what do you think the diagnosis is? And they vote on that. Now I'm going to ask you in a second to vote for what muscle it is. But the first thing I want to say is, in terms of clinico-legal safety, in other words, not getting sued, you don't need to actually know what muscle it is. All you need to know to be safe is that it's concomitant and that her symptoms suggest that it's new or changing. Because that means that you need to do something to discover why it's changing. And if you can't discover why it's changing and can't fix it, then you need to refer. And then they vote on what they would do about the case. Would they refer? Would they manage? This is the bottom line in these cases, that you will see patients with long-standing superior oblique paresis. And in these patients, you need to be very careful about multifocal spectacles of any type or monovision. And if you are going to try them, then you would give the patient lots of advice, monitor them very carefully, because there's a risk that you could cause them to decompensate. But by and large, progressive additional lens spectacles require the patient to look down and in when they read. So for a superior oblique palsy, even a long-standing one like this case, they're not a good idea. Sometimes the symptoms will tell you there's a BV anomaly, but more often than not, it's the routine testing that we do with the patient. So every eye exam will include cover testing, near point of convergence, and often those will detect a binocular vision anomaly. Routine motility testing is important in children, because if children have a congenital incompetency, for example, they might not report it, the parents might not have even noticed it, but it's something that we would see on motility. So in those cases, there may be a patient who doesn't present with any suspicious symptoms and the parents don't describe any suspicious history, but on testing we find something that we discover needs further investigation.